Primary suspect in the Natalee Holloway case comes home for the holidays. Joran Vandersloot, on break from college in Holland, has returned to Aruba. Authorities now say the Dutch teen and his cohorts, Deepak and Satish Kalpo, will be questioned once again by police. So where is this case going from here? That depends on which side of the blogosphere you've been surfing. Veteran newsman Steve Cohen has been enlisted by the Aruban government to help out with the island nation's image. You can read all about the government side of this case at arubatruth.com. Steve, great to see you.
Good to see you as well.
All right, on the phone, the other side. Red, as he calls himself, is editor of scaredmonkeys.com. Red's blog has been all over this story from the start. Red, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Denny.
All right, and still with us, of course, Joe Tacopina to my left. Joe, thanks again for staying with us. All right, Steve Cohen, what's going on here? Joran's going to be questioned once again, and so is Deepak and Satish by authorities. Why have they waited so long?
Well, the reason they've waited so long, let's just go back chronologically for a second. Around Labor Day, the three of them were released from the prison on the island called Kia. It was a very sad moment for everybody in Aruba, except for the families, of course, of those three boys, because we felt that the case had sort of hit a snag. So over the last 90 days, what's happened is all the testimony has been reviewed. More investigators have been put on the case. We now have 14 investigators on the case. And going over about 12,000 pages of testimony, boxes of videotapes collected from hotels, etc., trying to put the case back together to see what they missed and where they can go from here. So now that that's happened, they've said, well, he's going to be back anyway for the holidays. Why not use this as an opportunity to bring him in and question him again?
All right, Red, what do you think of this? Are you skeptical about what's taking place down there?
Well, I mean, I appreciate the fact that they're actually going to bring, Joran, Deepak, and Satish back in for questioning. Many of us have always wondered why this wasn't done much sooner. They had the opportunity to do it in Holland if they had wanted to. Also, the fact, which we really don't understand, is, it's along the lines of they've had the opportunity, they've seen that there are discrepancies in these stories. We don't understand why it would take Joran coming back to Aruba in order to have both Deepak and Satish questioned as well. I mean, the other night on another network, Mr. Cohen made a comment that there were discrepancies in their stories, which it's obvious to many that there were. Why would it take Joran coming back to Aruba to bring Deepak and Satish in for questioning?
Steve?
Yeah, well, thanks, Red. By the way, Red's been probably one of the best journalists on this whole case through all of it, so we always appreciate having him around and reading what he says. But to answer his question, I think it's because we're trying to be very meticulous at this stage of the game. There's no question that in the first quarter of this case, the first 3 months, there's a lot of concerns about whether the Aruban authorities had really done everything by the book, meaning the FBI or American prosecutor book. And I think they just want to be very, very careful here, going step by step and accumulating enough material so that they could actually have some results out of this reinterrogation of the three of them.
All right, Joe Tacopina, is there going to be any results here? I mean, they've got months and months to prepare for this. They've got their stories. Are they going to stick to their stories? Can authorities get anything out of these reinterrogations months later?
But what we seem to forget is that they're actually able to do this in Aruba. I mean, we're acting so outraged that they're not doing it sooner, that they're not doing it more often, that is, interrogating these three suspects. In the United States, where we seem to think we have the corner on the best justice system in the world, this would never even be able to happen. So as outraged as we are that it's not moving fast enough in Aruba, here, when these three boys are named suspects of this case, they get lawyers, and prosecution's not allowed to speak to them or the police as many times as they want until they break them. I mean, that's just not allowed to happen. So the fact that they do it there, I think, gives them a leg up. So when we complain about their system down there or their lack of vigor, I mean, they're doing things there that we would never be able to do here. One. Two, if they haven't broken this case yet, I think with each passing day, it may just remain one of those unsolved, homicides. It really may, because unless one of these kids break, if you will, if they're the ones who've done this, I think all physical evidence at this point is probably gone.
Yeah, and the problem is you don't have the body either. If you go back to like the Peterson case, if they didn't have the body in that case, would have been a difficult and a much different case against Scott Peterson, and you don't have the body in this case. Steve Cohen, why are you working for Aruba? Why do they need someone like you to get the information out there on the internet and to appear on programs for Aruba?
Well, I think we found in the early stages that, one, there are some idiomatic issues in terms of the use of the English language that would be at the top of the list. Second, and most importantly for the prosecutor, they want the guys here to concentrate on the case and not have to worry about what they're saying in American media. It's so influential, American media. And also, and third, I think, and importantly, you have a very aggressive, well-funded, thoughtful, and smart family of the victim here. And this creates a different environment for everyone in Aruba than you would have in a normal case. So they elected to have someone with my background to come forward and try to bring all these thoughts together and present it to people in the United States.
You know, Red, as I listen to Steve, he's complimenting you, he's complimenting Natalee Holloway's family here. What's your take on the job that the government in Aruba has done so far? Are you going to compliment them as well?
I mean, I can appreciate the fact that they want to keep this investigation going, that they say that they want to reinvestigate and look over everything that had been done, which basically kind of makes you get the idea that they think that it wasn't done properly in the very beginning. And but just a point to make with what Joe had said, the outrage that the people have is not, we don't base it off of an American standard. We base it off of what we've learned, what is the Aruban Dutch standard. And we know that it's actually a much easier process because you can arrest people for suspicion of murder, which is all the more reason why many people wondered why in the first 10 days, these three people, the last people ever seen with Natalee Holloway, were not arrested. And it further goes to the fact that all the evidence, and Joe pointed it out, that this may never be a solved case. But it goes back to those first 10 days that were so critical that we can never get back. Now we have the people coming back to Aruba to be re-interviewed, but yet there's no sense of urgency. If it were me, the minute he got off the plane, he would have been interrogated.
Steve, what about those first 10 days? Have mistakes been made? Will Aruban officials admit that it wasn't done exactly the way it should have been done and there were some missed opportunities?
The missed opportunities that occurred in the first 48 hours when the authorities went after two security guards who had backgrounds that allowed them to think that they might have created a situation to be involved in the disappearance. But within 48 hours, all three of these guys were suspects and they were surveilled after they were arrested. So it isn't quite 10 days, but I'll agree with Red. There's no question that the physical evidence that existed at that point, which was critical to solving this case, either disappeared or wasn't there. And we have not been able to overcome the difficulty of those first few days.
Joe Tacopina, compared to the way investigations are done here, was this case blown early on?
Well, you know, Red raises a good point. If you compare it to their standards, Dutch, Aruban standards, it was blown in that regard because they do have different laws and they do allow you to be detained on suspicion, something that here flies in the face of all this country's is the criminal justice laws. But you can be detained on just suspicion and you can be held and interrogated ad nauseum. And if that's the law there, which it is, and they didn't pursue it, I guess you can make a legitimate and valid claim that they sort of dropped the ball in the early stages. And in any homicide investigation, the early stages are the most crucial stages, Vinny.
All right, the story continues. Red, Joe Tacopina, and Steve Cohen, thank you so much for joining us. Coming up next, this pumped-up couple has just been tracked down. Police launched the manhunt for them after their personal assistant turned up torched in a car. Strange, you say? Well, you ain't heard nothing yet. We've got the full story right after this break. Don't go away.